Hi, I'm Dr. Ken Mathis, and I'm going to demo Security for Bitbucket by Soteri. Security for Bitbucket is compatible with Bitbucket 7 and 8. Also, if it is on Bitbucket 7, the Git version should be 2.35 or lower as per Atlassian guidelines. Security for Bitbucket is a tool which scans Bitbucket repositories and reports if there is sensitive information in the code, such as passwords, API keys, OAuth tokens, LinkedIn client information, and so forth. There are two primary ways Security for Bitbucket protects customers. First, we can scan repositories that are already in Bitbucket. Second, we can scan repositories that are being pushed to Bitbucket by way of a pre-receive hook, and if a sensitive piece of information is found, we reject the push, alerting the developer who pushed it, thereby preventing the publishing of a secret. Here, we are looking at the global dashboard, visible by any admin or person to whom explicit access was granted. We can get here by way of this padlock icon in the upper right. From here, we can see the projects in this instance. We can filter by project type, as well as by name. I'll show these projects for now. For a given project, we can examine the Actions menu. Here we can scan all branches in the project which don't yet have an up-to-date scan. We may rescan all branches in the project, and we may also export all findings from these scans into a CSV file. Alternately, up here we can scan the whole instance. That is, all branches in all projects which do not have an up-to-date scan will be scanned. We may also export all findings into a zip file which contains one CSV file per project. Each colored bar here lets us know how many repos are in each project are in what status. Hovering over gives us more details. So for example, here we have one project with 3 secure repositories, 1 vulnerable repository, and 2 repositories which are not scanned. We may also sort the display by project name by clicking here, and number of findings found by clicking here. Let's say we want to drill down a little into the dev project. This takes us to the project level, in which we can see all of its repositories. Here we can filter by repository type, as well as by name. We can choose to scan the whole project up here, and export its findings here into a CSV file. We may also choose a given repository and scan, rescan, or export its findings as well. The colored bar tells us how many branches are in which status. So for example, for this repository, we have one branch, which also has vulnerabilities, which is to say findings. We can drill down even further and select which branches to scan. Let's do this for rep3 master. So here I had already scanned it, but we can scan it again. And then when that's complete, we see that we have 141 vulnerabilities. Clicking on this lozenge will open up a new window called the branch scan report, and this shows us all the findings for that given branch. From here, we can switch to a different branch in the same repository, and we can also filter these findings by the rule that triggered them. So a rule is a regex that each line of code is compared against. Many rules also have additional filtering logic to better distinguish between actual secrets and testing or template code. We may examine a finding by clicking on it. Here we see the file name and the line number, and also the rule name which triggered. Additionally, we can also see the text that triggered the rule, highlighted in yellow. Now, for other examples, we can scroll down a little bit. Actually, we can't with this filter on. Let's try that again. We can see other examples, like so. Now, we can examine the finding and see if it is an actual secret or if it is a false positive. Here we can tell by inspection that this is a false positive, and so we may choose to mark this finding as reviewed. And this means that this finding will no longer show up in reports now or in the future. Once we mark the finding as reviewed, we see that any text which exactly matches the finding will also be marked reviewed, so we don't have to do each of those individually. Notice the second finding has been grayed out because the text matches. In our branch scan report, if we don't want to see these reviewed findings, we can simply toggle Show Reviewed off. And of course, if we change our mind, we can unmark the finding, and it will show back up again. Returning to the global dashboard, if there are a lot of scans queued, we may see them up here. So for example, if I go to scan repository 2 in the dev project, I will see those scans queued up here. Notice that we have all kinds of control as to whether we want these scans to continue or not. For example, I can cancel individual queued scans, or I can cancel scans that are currently running. We notice that there were 2 scans that were run in parallel. This is because this is a single node instance which is configured to have 2 scans running in parallel. The way to change that is to go to the settings page found by this button here. And in particular, the parallel scans per node setting determines that. Scrolling down, we notice that we see all of the built-in rules that Security for Bitbucket gives us. Right now there are 44 such built-in rules, but some of them are disabled by default, either because they are inappropriate for the application or because they can generate potentially too many false positives. But we can control them here. In addition, we can also provide custom rules. I'll go ahead and add a new custom rule, and I'll save it like so. Once this is done, I can go back to the global dashboard, and we see that some of these scans are now marked as outdated. This is because the settings have changed. Now this alerts the users that, well, there can now potentially be new vulnerabilities that can be introduced. So it is safest to rescan these things which were previously marked as secure. Now if I go ahead and scan project 1, for example, it used to have no vulnerabilities, but now it has 6 of them. And if I drill down a little bit, there's only 1 repository, 4 branches, 3 of which have 2 vulnerabilities each. And I can examine them like so. And we notice that the test custom rule that we made has triggered. Back in settings, we can edit or delete custom rules as well. So we can edit like so. And we may also delete. I'll go ahead and delete this. Now, if there is a repository that requires special attention, perhaps certain files and directories shouldn't be scanned because they generate too many false positives, or that the repo requires different rules than those configured globally, then one can first enable the per repository rules like so, and then provide a configuration file, Soteri security.yml, in the root of the default branch of the repository. The details can be found in the documentation, obtained by clicking here, and the details of that file are discussed here, defining repository level detection rules. We can see all the details that we need in order to configure the file appropriately. Now, I mentioned earlier that the global dashboard can be viewed by people granted specific access. This is controlled here. So I can add an individual, or I can add a group. Of course, I can remove them just as easily. From here, we can also configure the pre-receive hook, which stops repos from being stored in Bitbucket if they contain secrets. Right now, it's set to only allow the hook if the individual project or repository allows that hook. But we can set this globally as well. To do so, I'll go ahead and set it this way, to always. And now notice that a new setting has popped up, and this global hook mode is in one of two flavors, block or warn only. If a secret is found, then the push will be disallowed under block, but if a secret under warn only, if a secret is found, then the developer will be alerted, but the push will be allowed to go through. We'll go ahead and set it to block. Now, once this is enabled, if I go ahead and try to push a repository that has a secret, then we see the rejection here, and it gives us the file name, the commit ID, and other things. And just to show you that there was in fact a secret here in this JavaScript file, I have it provided like so. Now, if the hook is enabled and a developer preemptively knows that what is being written is not a secret, an allow list pragma may be incorporated into the code itself. These often appear as comments on the same line as the false positive. We can view the list of supported pragmas in the documentation under allow listing detected secrets. And here are pragma, we have any number of pragmas to choose from, all of which are styled to look like comments. So for our JavaScript file, we'll go ahead and use this pragma. Notice that we still have the same line, but we have added our pragma up here. And now notice that the push has succeeded. If I attempt to scan a repository that has a particular pragma, so for example this was the example repo in the dev project, I'll go ahead and scan this. We notice that it is a secure repository, and if I go to the branch scan report, then there's one finding, but that has been grayed out and marked as allow listed. And we can view those details just as before. If we don't wish to see such allow listed items, we can toggle those off. This concludes my demonstration of security for Bitbucket. Thank you for watching.